audio good? We rolling? All right, man. 100 something? Yeah, we all know what it is. All right, man. 100 something. Listen, we're back, man. MIC Podcast, community, content, family. You get it all here. Our guests today, right before the holidays, are a very special couple. Very, very decorated in their respective rights. One of them is a decorated law enforcement veteran. The other has spent some time on Broadway before starting her own career. Starting her own business. And is the founder of a babysitting agency and company. So here we have Jon and Shannon Harrell here in the building with us. What's going on, guys? No, man. Thank you so much for coming through. It's a pleasure. Like, I know you're always showing love, to the podcast, and we really, really thank you for that. We respect you for watching a week at least. No, man, I love it. So, really, Jon, we can start off with you if you don't mind. If you want to go into just where in Pittsburgh you grew up, just for people who may not know, and just talk about your upbringing a little bit.
2 locations in Pittsburgh that I grew up at that I'm familiar with is, the adolescence, grew up at Homewood, and then once got into middle school and high school, transitioned out to Monroeville, graduated from Gateway Senior High School out there, go Gators. And, basically grew up in the eastern suburbs of Pittsburgh and transitioned to, school, University of Pittsburgh, so forth, and made my way out of the PG area.
Okay.
Into the D.
Okay, shout out to the DMVs.
Yes, for sure. You know about that.
Mm-hmm.
And, progressed in the D.C. area throughout my law enforcement career.
Mm-hmm.
Did 22 years in Arlington, Virginia, and then transitioned out of retirement to Collier County Sheriff's Office down in Naples, Florida.
Okay. Copy. Okay, now you're one of 4 siblings, 3 siblings?
Correct.
4? Okay, and how was it growing up with 4? Well, 3 other brothers, like
it's a microcosm of
yeah, well, fair, yeah, facts. I respect it.
But no, man, growing up in a household full of testosterone, and just mental was just, it was good. It gave me the backbone that I have nowadays.
For sure.
Personalities, things of that nature. So, it was challenging to a certain extent, but there was a lot of love and a lot of admiration and respect in our household. And that's why we're still close to this day. We have learned to grow with each other when we're growing up, and also learn to respect each other's space.
Right.
And we were always out doing different things, even hanging out with different homies and things of that nature. But at the same time, when it was time to bond with that brotherly love, when the intention was necessary, we always came.
Yeah.
It was good upbringing that I had with my brothers.
For sure. Is there maybe any way specifically that maybe that upbringing kind of shaped you into your career in law enforcement? Is there any traits that you can think off the top of your head that
Hell yeah, I learned from my oldest brother's mistakes.
I do want to
know what I'm saying?
Talk to Mike a little bit more.
I've learned in my oldest brother's mistakes.
Okay.
But I've also learned from my younger brothers as well. You know what I mean? And as an individual who is in law enforcement,
mm-hmm.
I was the first one to make the mistake.
Man,
I was locked up in 1992.
Okay.
So, and I always tell that story to the kids and all the individuals that I'm associated with in my career that, that's what's great about this country is you have an opportunity to get second chances at life.
Right.
I mean, and now I was behind bars in a jumpsuit, but now I'm in a uniform with a badge of authority, and I'm helping people guide themselves, in life and reality.
Yeah.
Second chances, and I learned second chances from my brother. I learned second chances from my younger brothers, things of that nature, whatnot. Learned second chances from my parents and some of the mistakes that they've had, but also some of the nurturing that they've instilled in me that I got from them, and I was able to turn it to my brothers as well. So, it came full circle for me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just speaking on like that period in '92, just how did you navigate that and just kind of internally tell yourself that like, all right, I'm gonna turn stuff around and then pursue a career in law enforcement?
That's an awesome question, man. I tell people all the time that you learn from your mistakes, and I learn from my mistakes. And I always tell people that don't do anything based upon your reaction that's going to cause another man to take your freedom away from you.
Right.
And I did something based upon a knee-jerk reaction that allowed a man to take my freedom away from me. And, I tell them that for a reason and for a purpose, that there are pros and cons based upon the decisions that you're going to make. And you could be looking at a jumpsuit, or you can be looking at, being a successful individual in life. But at the same time, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're going to learn from your mistakes, and I learned.
So when you were initially, pursuing, a career in law enforcement, how was like that initial process? Like, did you have to go to the academy? Like, how did you get into that field?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I really didn't have a lot of ambitions being a cop.
Okay.
I wanted to be a
Okay.
But at the same time, also told myself, I don't want to be that type of guy, and I'm not knocking anybody's profession that wanted to ring the bell and walk into a cubicle and work at 9 to 5.
Sure, right.
I didn't want that robot mentality.
Right.
Always wanted something that was going to challenge me every single day. And basically, when you're in law enforcement, you hear things in social media and society that's saying it's routine, this, routine that. There's no freaking way that being a cop
is routine. Facts, right?
There's a challenge to it every single day. And transitioning out of civilian life and going into the academy, I learned to respect the profession a lot more. You know what I mean? As compared to seeing it on reality TV or Hollywood or whatnot. I learned to respect the profession based upon the academy instructors that I had actual, communication with.
Right.
And I got entrenched within the concept of law enforcement because I developed a passion for it. I developed a passion for trying to help out and not hinder people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've always been in a situation where I've saved more lives than I've taken, and physically and emotionally. Going into that atmosphere, into that profession, you got to have teeth.
Right.
But at the same time, if you don't have teeth and you have a passion for it, you can develop teeth for the job. And, some people develop it that way. Some people already got the bite,
Yeah, right.
And I had a little bit of the bite from my upbringing, from the fact that I was always a competitor and an athlete, things of that nature. So I had a little bit of the bite. I just needed to be honed in.
Yeah.
And honing in your profession in law enforcement takes years of mental.
Yeah.
It takes years to do something like that. And, you're going to get fight back. You're going to get kicked in your butt. And people are going to hit you and knock you while you're down, but you got to get the fuck up.
Yeah, right.
And so.
Yeah. And then just even with, just kind of backtracking to football. Just even kind of backtrack to football real quick, Chan, before we get to you. Why did that stop? Was that like an injury? Did you just like say like, hey, like, this may not be for me?
No, I just wasn't good enough.
Oh, for real? Okay, yeah.
In my mind, I thought I was good, but
yeah,
and I don't think I think I take that back. I thought I was good enough. The opportunity
weren't there
at that particular time was not. It wasn't my calling at that particular time. I left the dreams and aspirations of being in the NFL and I did small things as far as like indoor football and minor league football. And I took advantage of my opportunities and I performed at a high level. I never rode the bench for anything I did on football. But at the same time, getting that opportunity outside of the NFL, I mean, that was what I wanted to do. And it was what I was hungry for. And I was also hungry to get an opportunity in the NFL, but the opportunity wasn't there. It's a rare opportunity to get into that 3%.
Yeah, literally.
Coming out of college or even coming off the streets, it's a rare opportunity to get that opportunity to play and perform at that level.
For sure. Yeah. I'm pivoting to Shannon. So I know you're originally from California.
Yes.
And
Bay Area.
You spent up until college there, right? Before moving to New York, or?
Yes. So I was in California through college.
Okay.
And then I left. I graduated from college a little bit early to perform on a cruise ship.
Oh, nice.
Did
Okay.
that 2 different ships for a year. And then basically to save money and perform, because I think that the idea about performing on cruise ships that is so essential for performers is the fact that you have no backup. So it's a really great way to strengthen the muscle that you have, especially as a singer, because you have to work through illness and not feeling well and all the different things that you might go through that might in a normal situation say like, I need to call out tonight or I can't go on. There is nobody to take over. So it's a really great place to kind of figure all those things out for yourself outside of college. And it's also a beautiful place to save money because you don't have anywhere to spend it.
Right.
So it's a really great thing that they talk about a lot within a lot of different performance schools and stuff, that it's a good first step. So I'm glad I did that, and then used all of my savings and knowledge that I gained on that, and then moved to New York City right after. I went to New York City though in college, then while I was in there over the summer for an internship.
Okay.
Stuff.
Just kind of backtracking a little bit, like how was it growing up in the Bay Area? I've only been once, but like how was your experience growing up there? Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it was kind of the best of all worlds. I mean, I'm sure I'm very biased when I say that, but we had lots of seasons, or be able to get to the seasons, but it wasn't super crazy in terms of weather and all of that, but we could get to the mountains and experience all of that, and so the weather was really awesome. But I loved the Bay Area from the fact that I felt it was a very diverse community of different people, meeting lots of people. My family was involved with a lot of different people. They were an education background, so we had just a lot of availability for meeting a lot of different people. And then the performance opportunities were great.
Okay.
I started performing when I was really young. And there was a lot there. San Francisco has a really amazing theater and performing possibilities and opportunities. And then even within San Jose, which is like, Santa Clara and kind of the heart of the Bay Area, there was a lot going on, especially when I was growing up. There was a lot of theater groups and a lot of camps and a lot of really incredible instructors that had really great backgrounds. So I felt like I had a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I was able to start pretty seriously.
Yeah. How old were you when you started getting into that?
Professionally, I really started performing at around 12,
That's
I would
insane.
say. But I started I started studying when I was really young, not knowing that that's what I was doing. It just was something I really enjoyed. And then it grew from there and became a part of my life from a young age. And I think I just happened to fall into something I was good at. And so I really enjoyed it. I loved all of it, but I also loved the other side of the competition behind it, and the ability to be working with people in different theaters and shows and things like that. But then there was also a lot of opportunity to move forward as a soloist as well. So it kind of felt like I was able to create a lot of community from being able to be in productions with other people, but also have drive for just myself, working on my own voice.
Yeah.
What
were you studying at like 12? Like what were you drawn to?
I mean, really, it was just, it was doing theater. It was having an understanding about what musicals are really about, and not just, just singing, but kind of getting a better understanding of what a musical was, and a story of a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the fact that you can be involved in that, in telling a story through music, and not just, singing a 3.5-minute song and whatnot. So I really started to find that just fascinating.
Yeah.
I thought that was a lot of fun. But then I did a lot of competition when I was young, both in dance and in singing. Definitely singing was the harder passion for myself than it was for dance. I've considered myself a very strong mover, but not, I mean, I was a good dancer, but I really, everything was surrounded around singing. So, and then we would just I did scholarship competitions and other things that I was able to, be recognized for, which then led into having performance opportunities all over the place. So
you, that's true. Yeah, a couple of competitors. No, for sure. Shannon, real quick, before we put it back to Jon as well. So, you were going through college for musical theater, correct?
Yes. So I went to University of the Pacific, and I majored in music with a minor in communication.
Okay. And then so after that, like, what did the cruise ship opportunity just immediately present itself? Was that something like you were searching for while you were, going to school, or?
Yeah, I auditioned for it. I convinced my dad to drive me to Los Angeles. I heard about it and wanted to go, and
that LA traffic,
it just
insane.
And I had parents who were extremely supportive of this dream that I had. So yeah, we got in the car and went, and I did the audition, and I remember I did it in January, and it was called like February 1st and asked to leave at the end of March.
Wow.
So I immediately went to my parents and was like, this is what I want to do. And they were like, well, you graduate in June, so that's not going to happen. And so then I went to the dean of the music school and talked to him about what I could do to leave by March.
Okay.
And they worked with me and looked at where I was within the music program. And at that point, which I'm sure for a lot of different majors, it can be similar, but it was a lot of your last semester was very project based.
Yeah.
So it was all about me being able to execute these projects in enough time. And when there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
So I made it happen and graduated and left.
Yeah. No, you made it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jon, going back to you, I want to touch on the some like your early days at the academy, because you were saying that just like some misconceptions, for lack of a better word, like you may have had about people in law enforcement shifting, like when you entered the academy. Let's like, what were some of those for you? Like, what was some of like the biggest culture shock, like entering that environment that like kind of jumped off the page to you?
Learning the facts. Learning the facts about law enforcement and the aspect of community service. So those were some of the things that I learned throughout my law enforcement career as a basic recruit, as compared to looking at Hollywood, or, looking at television shows and things of that nature. And when you get into the academy, you're like, oh shit, that's not how it works.
Right.
This is how it works, and this is the reason why it works. And as you hone your skills throughout the years of your service, you understand it a lot more as compared to when you were in there as a boot.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, the academy, and I take this with a grain of salt, because I was fortunate in my career. I started my career at the Northern Virginia Criminal Justice Training Academy as a recruit.
Okay.
And I ended my career as an instructor.
Oh, that's hard. Okay.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of people that can say that.
It's full circle.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're right, it went full circle for me. So I got an understanding of what it was like to be a basic recruit, and what it was like to lead other recruits to their salvation as far as law enforcement.
Yeah.
So the academy, it opens up your minds, and it opens up your concepts to law enforcement, and the intriguing and the small integral parts.
Absolutely.
Of law.
Yeah.
I mean, it's compared to what you don't see on the screen.
I love that, because just like the whole full circle aspect of it, like what was it like just internally going through that evolution, and just even in hindsight, like when you were instructors, like looking back for you, like what was it like being like, damn, like now I'm about to like shape these people into like like the next wave of.
I tell you what, the very first day of the academy as a recruit, you got butterflies.
Yeah.
When you were in your dress blues and whatnot, your academy blue uniform.
Yeah.
And then as an instructor, the first day you come down that hallway to greet your recruits, you got those same butterflies.
Wow.
And I guess it's just the human aspect, the human element of an individual and their internal makeup, and I'm saying to myself, I'm an instructor, I can do this, I can handle myself, but at the same time, that's just the human element of the body, and there's no denying, you know what I mean? But once you get into the room and you do your thing, just the same as a recruit, it settles down. And I can also equate that to football. Once the kickoff is done and you run down the field, you make that contact.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, so from a recruit to the instructor, basically the same overall internal feelings.
Was there any challenges as an instructor that like you maybe came across, or like you maybe didn't expect in like teaching someone?
Dealing with individuals.
Yeah.
dealing with individuals from the age of 20 to the age of 63.
Wow.
You know, that was the dynamic of individuals that I dealt with as an instructor. I mean, we had kids that were coming in straight out of college,
Yeah.
the streets. We had individuals that were coming in from different aspects of law enforcement, where they'd been retired, or they were starting a new career, or whether or not they were adjusting to a different situation as far as law enforcement is concerned, making transfers, things of that nature. Yeah, I mean, and dealing with individuals who had honed in their skills as far as law enforcement is concerned, and respecting them from the time of service that they've had, and understanding the fact that, hey, you're here because you need to be certified, but at the same time, I understand as an instructor that you're aware of how to be a cop.
Right.
So you treat them differently. You know what I mean? It's almost like having a child. If you have 3 or 4 kids, you're not going to treat these kids the same exact way.
That's crazy. Yeah, no facts.
So you have to be respectful for the amount of individuals, or the caliber of individual that comes into the academy. So I learned how to deal with individuals on a one-on-one basis, based upon what their background was and their level of experience.
We interviewed a psychologist, or psychologist, Dr. Timbo. Shout out to Dr. Timbo. But she works in, you know, that field, and she always says, like, meet people where they're at. You know, and like I think that, you know, that story, like the anecdote, is like a perfect, like, you know, testament to that. It's like like dealing with people, you know, like where they're at, rather than like kind of like, you know, yank them up, or like, you know, like yank them down like a certain level.
Right. And I agree with that. And that's how you develop yourself as far as interpersonal communication skills on the streets. You know what I mean? There are some individuals that come into law enforcement, and we'll take their not only their geographical location, but their cultural location as well. There are some individuals that come in, like, say, for example, white men that have never had interaction with black men.
Yeah. Right.
And when you're talking about meeting somebody, how are you supposed to meet somebody if you've never been introduced to them? You know what I'm saying? So you have to hone your skills and interpersonal communication skills to develop the concept of dealing with individuals that may not be familiar to who you are and what your character is.
Right.
So to a certain extent, I don't tell people to mirror match. I just tell you to look at that individual, look at what that individual's done, respect their background. Okay. If you don't know the background of an individual, then ask. Ask about that background. And that's one of the reasons why I always thought that individuals coming in from a correctional setting, worked in corrections, to take that individual and put them out on the street, they perform a hell of a lot better than an individual who has never had corrections work before.
For sure.
Because they deal with individuals locked up behind the wall, where they don't have the available tools that are on their belt that are outside to combat a situation. You have to learn to give the gab and mind and meet everybody from all over, from all different cultural platforms, locked up behind the wall.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. I'm gonna try my best to balance talking to 2 interesting people with depth right now. This is crazy, because that's nuts. And like, I definitely want to pivot back to that. Shannon, I do want to touch on your time on the cruise ship. Like, that was really you know, like a time for you where you were really performing professionally, like I guess just like on your own reins.
Right.
So like, how was that? And then just being on a cruise ship just in the middle of the ocean, like.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was a great learning experience. I mean, I think professionally, it was a great learning experience. You learn a lot about your voice. You learn a lot about what it can take, what it can't take. You know, how much sleep you really have to have, like all of that kind of stuff, and taking care of yourself. You know, there's nobody but you there to do that. It was an interesting situation dynamic. My first cruise ship experience, the first contract I had. I had a lot of difficulty with one of my castmates who just, you know, wasn't there in the same light that I was. He just had a really hard time. We were both lead singers, and he had a really hard time with the feedback that I was getting as opposed to the feedback he was getting, to say it nicely. So there was a lot of conflict when it comes down to that. And that also taught me a lot about the performance world. There is no safety in terms of, you know, what people will do.
Look, brother, you're flat. You're flat on the shit. People aren't finishing their meal.
Well, I mean, it gave me a really honest look at how far people will go to put themselves in front of you and what they will do for that. And I always have looked at intentions of people of like, in such a wonderful way.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is it was a cutthroat business.
Yeah.
And that was my first situation at really seeing, that somebody will do whatever they can do to get ahead. And you have to stay true and authentic to yourself and know that, hey, if I'm putting in the work, if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm doing what's I know I'm supposed to, and then some, which has always been my work ethic, I have nothing to be worried about. So you do you, and I'll do me, and we'll see how it ends up. And, and that was a really important lesson that I heard, but it was a really important lesson to learn myself. And I will never, forget that or not be thankful for it, as terrible as it was at the time to be out in the middle of the ocean and in Alaska and like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
It really taught me a lot of independence, in terms of sticking up for myself and being really firm on what I was doing. And again, my work ethic for it. That was important. But
I was going to say, like, where was the cruise going? Like, so like you said, Alaska.
My first contract was an inaugural contract that started, which meant that it was the ship's first cruise.
Okay.
So it started in Fort Lauderdale, and we did the Panama Canal to get ourselves over to the West Coast.
Okay.
And then we went all the way up the West Coast, and then we did 6 months of 7-day cruises in Alaska.
That's crazy.
So it was really, I would have never done that until probably this point of my life, saying like, I find Alaska intriguing. So at the time I was like, Alaska? But it was incredible. Like,
really?
It was absolutely beautiful. It was places that I never knew that I thought would just be super fun.
Yeah.
Everybody knew us coming back to the different ports. So we made friends with different people in different restaurants and bars and scenes. And that part was really fun. And different excursions that I just, at that time of my life in my early 20s, would not have made a priority.
Sure.
So I was happy for that. And then I had a couple of weeks off and actually wasn't going to return. I was getting myself ready to move to New York, and they asked me to cover a situation that was happening doing a Hawaii cruise, and it was a 15-day Hawaii cruise. So I went out there and ended up staying for another 6 months. That cast was incredible. Still friends with people that I performed with at that point. And so we did 15 days Hawaii, 10 days Mexico, 15 days Hawaii. So it made up for the cold weather.
Crazy. Yeah.
For sure. It was awesome, and it was an incredible experience, and everybody was so supportive of each other. So I got to see both sides of it, the real family that the theater community can really make.
Yeah, right.
And then the bad eggs, which you get in every job and every profession and every career.
Sure.
So I'm really thankful to have both of them, to not be sort of blind to the situation. But yeah, so it was a good time.
That's dope. Like, what kind of songs would you sing?
We had different a couple of different shows that we would perform in every cruise. And so there was like a Broadway standard show, so it was a lot of classic Broadway shows. The company I worked for was called Stiletto Entertainment, and it was Barry Manilow's company, and it was part of that. So,
wow.
So we did a review, of his stuff. We did a lot of different, more older classic songs and things that were more recognizable as.
Yeah.
I worked for Holland America, so that cruise ship tend to be a little bit of an older crowd. So we did shows around that, but it was all music I had also grown up on, so I loved it.
No.
Yeah, I really loved it.
So you were going to get ready for New York. What was, but like before you got pulled back into the cruise, but like
sure.
After that, like, did you end up going to New York, and like what was the driving force behind that?
Yeah, I knew that's where I wanted to go, and I almost went there for college, but knowing that was really where I was going to end up, I decided to stay in California to go to college. And so I actually went my freshman year of college to the University of Redlands, where my parents and my grandparents and my sister had gone, but found that I wanted a school that was a little bit bigger. And so I ended up transferring to the University of the Pacific in their music program. But there was a point that I thought, well, I'll go to Fordham, or I wanted to go to NYU.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. So I knew the minute that I was done with school, that's where I was going, and then did the cruise ship in between. So the whole time on the cruise ship, I was packing in my mind of getting myself there, how I was going to be there, where I was going to find an apartment, what was I going to do, all of that kind of stuff. But the cruise ship really allowed me, like, that first 6 months or so of being there to not have to work. So I didn't have to I could really concentrate on just auditioning, which is the hardest part about living in New York, is that it's so expensive and you have to have jobs, but you have to also be available at all times for auditions. So it's like I think the hardest thing to juggle as a performer, as a theater person, as an artist in New York, is trying to find that balance between, pursuing your artistry the way you want to do it while also being able to live.
I mean, that's like the eternal struggle.
Yeah.
Just like as far as like with anything in that realm.
Yeah.
Like that's like a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it really ever ends.
No.
No matter like what level you're at,
Right.
And I know, trying to plan it out in your head is one thing, but making the jump to New York, like I've moved like, like a couple states, and I've been blessed enough to be able to land on my feet and like, figure it out. You know what I mean? But New York, it's a beast.
Yeah.
Like it's just a different beast. So like, how did you initially navigate that? I know you said like you didn't really have to work initially, just because like you would save that.
A lot of support from my parents,
for sure.
I've not been able to do it at all without my mom and dad. Definitely. They definitely would be guarantors on apartments.
Yeah.
They would help with the down payment. They would be very aware of what was going on and help me navigate through figuring out the finances of like making that choice, or what sublet I was going to get into, or just kind of navigating what that looked like, and having a better understanding of that, making sure that I wasn't forgetting, things or getting so wrapped up in the performance part of it that I was forgetting some of that stuff, which I think is easy to do. So they were very, very supportive, but they were also very supportive in making sure that I knew that, I had to have these jobs.
For sure.
They weren't funding the whole thing for me to do that, but they were helping make sure I had the right tools in order to do it. So that was really a lot of my success, was being able to be open and honest and ask for help when it was necessary.
For sure. Yeah.
But also holding myself accountable for the choices that I was making within that, which was hard. It was wanting to be there and wanting to do stuff, and then figuring out how to do it at the same time. So I worked a lot of jobs. I did a lot of different things. And tried to find that balance between the thing that I really, made me happy while I was also, trying to perform. But I got really lucky after that first bout of auditions that I got a national tour from that. And then I got a couple of other regional situations. So I was able to perform pretty quickly, by getting out there, which was helpful, so that I didn't get too discouraged too fast.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Jon, and just to kind of pivot it back to you, so I want to touch on two things. So I know that you did some work in the gang divisions.
Yeah.
How, I mean, like that goes without saying, like it's probably a crazy division to work in. What led you to like that division, and just again, like what was the culture shock like for you, if any, and how did you navigate working in a division like that? That's crazy.
Man, I was always intrigued with the level of consistency of a gangbang.
Dang. That's facts.
I was intrigued with the level of dedication of a gangbang. Gangbangers they'll put their gang before anybody. It's almost like fraternity.
No,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And there are some fraternities that they will do anything possible for their brother.
Right.
Gangbangers will do anything possible.
That's crazy.
For a fellow gangbanger.
Right.
You know what I mean? They'll go to jail. They'll go to prisons, and they'll put shit on their books.
Right.
You know what I mean? They'll take care of the old ladies on the street.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they'll take care of their kids. And the more and more you progress within the gang, up the ladder, the more and more respect you get from the individuals that are out on the streets. So I was intrigued with their fellowship. I was intrigued with their dedication. I was intrigued with the lines that they never crossed between. And I wanted to learn and get a better understanding of why they did what they did.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's sort of like the lines of law enforcement as well. We'll bend over backwards for each other to a certain extent.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And gangbangers do the exact same thing. And there was so many different gangs that was in the Northern Virginia DMV area that I came across because of filters from DC, filters from Baltimore. Filters from Southern Virginia, things of that nature. And the different amount of gangs that we dealt with gave me an opportunity to learn more about them. And that's just street level gangs, not just street level gangs, but also outlaw motorcycle gangs as well, and prison gangs as well. So the more and more I honed my intelligence and my learning skill on that, the more I became more and more passionate about it. And the passion took me to the West Coast.
Okay.
The passion took me to Pelican Bay State Penitentiary.
Okay.
Where all the shit that trickles down from that facility goes into Southern California and Northern California. And they're shot callers, they're criminalists that are up there that are locked up behind the wall that are making their beds outside of the prisons all the way in SoCal.
That's correct.
All the way in Northern California and so forth. And to see that reach that they have, that collective reach that they have behind the wall,
wow.
How it reaches a street level gangbanger was intriguing to me.
That's crazy.
It was intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, these dudes, they're blood in, blood out.
Right.
They mean that shit.
Facts.
They mean it.
Yeah.
So the more and more I hone my skills as far as intelligence gathering is concerned, the more and more I decided to myself, I said, I'm not going to hoard this information. I'm going to present this information. I'm going to present this information and spread this information. So I start doing gangs and symposiums and conferences and whatnot throughout the DMV area.
That's beautiful.
And just develop that passion just because I wanted to learn the concept.
For sure. Yeah, no, and it sounds like you were just really in pursuit of that, like, what makes, like these ticks are like how, like what was just like the information gathering process for you? Like, was it just all like research? Was it coupled with like something like you saw out in the field, I'm sure? Like,
good question. I got a lot of the research going to different conferences throughout the country.
Okay.
Got a lot of research from going into LA County, Pelican Bay State Penitentiary. But the most research I got was sitting one-on-one across the table with a gangbang.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And doing the debriefs when the debriefs were necessary for me to do, and trying to get these individuals to trust me. You know what I mean? To trust me to deliver that information to me, that intelligence to me. And once you get them to trust you, then they'll come clean.
Yeah.
Come clean. And those that don't want anything to do with you, they'll let you know right away. Like, nah, dog, I ain't fucking with you.
Yeah.
It's a done deal.
Yeah, right.
So those are the ones you don't step to.
Dude.
You know what I mean? You got to respect their privacy, respect their opinions about not wanting to deal with law enforcement.
Yeah.
So those are the ones I respect.
Would you see like, like maybe some of your colleagues or just like, like some other cops, like maybe try to like just like use the tell me now or like try to like really
you don't get far with that trying to punk the gang.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll shut down on you.
Fact.
You know, and when they shut down on you, it's over. When there's no trust, it's completely over. Don't even come back to them.
Yeah, right.
Don't even come back to them years from now. They're just not happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you see some overzealous individual law enforcement officers that are probably disrespecting the code of the streets when it comes to gangbangers,
right? And
trying to bring that law enforcement aspect to the subject matter and completely get it shut down.
Yeah. And you were just talking about the debrief. Super delicate dance, like in order to gain a gang member's trust like that, like in a one-on-one situation. So how did you even handle that? How do you go about that? Like,
I talk about them. I would talk about where you from. What was your upbringing?
Yeah.
I mean, you have any siblings? What was your history with your parents like?
Yeah.
Your dad around? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was your working background like? Did you have a job? Did you hustle on?
Yeah.
I talk about them trying to bridge that gap between overseer as a law enforcement officer and just look at me as John Harrell. I would never do an interview in a uniform, ever. I mean, as soon as they walk in the door, they see the badge of authority, it's a done deal.
Yeah, right. They just had them really tense up.
I had them look at me as an individual. I would come in jeans and Timbos, you know what I mean? And you a cop? I'm like, sometimes. when I need to be. But right now, I want to talk to you, and I want to talk to you about your life. You know what I mean? And if you want to indulge or if you want to go further as far as your gang mentality is concerned, your gang culture, then let's talk about that as well. And that's how you break the ice in my opinion. Yeah. Respecting the individual on the other side of the table as a man first or as a woman first. And therefore, you get what you can out of them and what they will give at the same time.
Nah, like, I feel like if I was sitting across the stage with me, I'd change my life around. I'd be like, fuck that, give me a Bible. fuck all that. Like, yeah, nah, man, we turned it around. But no, man, like I feel like like that approach, man, it's just like, I mean, like you really know what you're doing, and it's just, I can tell that it's come from a place of literal like passion and intrigue. You know what I mean? Like, is crazy. So just even going into that, like, what was the one thing that just in the pursuit of going to these you know, gatherings of where they're just giving information about gangs, like, and like you're gathering this information, like what was some of like the commonalities between some of the different gangs in different regions, and like, you know, like that you learn, like,
I mean, like, for example, Northern Virginia area and the DC area, we had anywhere from 19 to 21 cliques at Marta Salvatrucha, you know, MS-13.
okay,
We had Gangsta Disciples, we had Bloods, we had Crips, we had, you know, a whole gamut of criminal street gangs. And, you know, every time you come across an individual and that gang mentality, that shit's different.
yeah,
You know, Southside locals, they don't act like Marta Salvatrucha.
true, man.
You know, Gangsta Disciples don't act like, you know, Bloods and Crips. Gangsta Disciples is Chicago set, Midwest stuff. You know what I mean? And a lot of individuals don't realize that. They just look at a gang as gang.
Yeah, there's blanket, right?
There's like a difference between almighty Latin King and Queen Nation as compared to just Latin Kings. There's different facets of this.
Yeah,
There's a difference between Blood, United Blood Nation, and Bloods on the West Coast.
yeah, right.
People just associate red with just, you know,
Blood.
Bloods on the West Coast.
Right.
They don't understand. They don't blend together.
Now,
You're not a United Blood Nation dude and going out and out on the West Coast and not getting G-checked. I mean,
yeah, right.
you're going to get checked. No matter what your situation is, no matter what color your rag you're floating,
Yeah,
you're going to get checked. So there's a different aspect of different gangs that, you know, as a gang investigator, you learn, you know, and you learn from going to different conferences across the country. I mean, we sent cats all the way to El Salvador. We went down to Orlando. We went down to Florida. We went to Texas. We went to New York. We went to the West Coast. You know, I've been to the West Coast twice, trying to, you know, hone my skills in the gang culture.
no,
And the more and more places we went, the more and more we learned. I mean, we learned a lot going to Philadelphia about OMGs and whatnot, you know, and Wheels of Soul. A lot of people don't know what Wheels of Soul is, and a lot of people just associate OMGs with Hell's Angels and the Pagans and the Mongols and stuff like that, you know. But the more and more you go, the more and more you learn, and the different aspects of the different climate of gangbanging across the country.
that's crazy, man. And that's it's such an intense, just environment. Like, what's the process like to even get into that division? Like, you have to sign up, you have to volunteer. Like, do they pick you? Like, or like, you know, how did you?
You know, when we had our gang program in Northern Virginia developed because of the fact that we had a gang epidemic. We didn't have a problem. We had a gang epidemic. And we had a gang epidemic because of some of the South American and Mexican culture that we had in the area. And one thing that I respected about our gangbangers is most of them cats would work and then they were gangbangers. And when Northern Virginia was experiencing a big construction boom back in the late 90s, mid 90s, where these cats were migrating from the West Coast. They were migrating from Southern California. And a lot of those cats were coming over here for the job, but at the same time, some of them couldn't survive over there.
Right.
So they would come over here and they would put down their own sets. And they would establish themselves over here on the East Coast. And, you know, these are the type of individuals that you learn to associate with in the DMV area. And they were everywhere. They were in Maryland. They were in Baltimore. They were in D.C. And they were all over the place. So, you know, when you engage in that type of activity, you know, you pick up certain traits from individuals. You know what I mean? Certain ideas and concepts of like, well, this particular group doesn't associate with this particular group doesn't associate with that, and this is how they get down.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you learn how to you know build camaraderie within a gangbanger and learn as you go.
Well, okay. So Shannon, just pivoting back to you. So when you were
Say that was the happiest I've ever seen him. He was working on the gang unit. That's when we first met. And that's the happiest
You know,
thing.
I had freedom. I mean, I had freedom. I was my own boss.
But it was you were very passionate.
Very passionate.
about it.
Yeah.
Still am to a certain extent.
No, for sure. Yeah, Shannon, when you were initially, auditioning in New York, I know that experience is, crazy. So, like, what kind of went into that? How did you navigate that? And, like, what were some of the highs, some of the lows,
I mean, I think like most careers, I mean, there was a lot of highs. It was a lot of it was a lot of challenge in terms of like being presented something that I thought I would be great for, and then working really hard to make that happen, and doing everything I could in my control. I think that being a part of the performing arts is about knowing that there's not a whole lot that you have in your control outside of your own work ethic and what you put into it.
Yeah,
So,
sure, yeah.
Somebody else's opinion is going to be what somebody else's opinion is, and that's what it is. Though it's an opinion, it's not necessarily a definition of the truth.
It's
So,
I just, because I know, like, with creatives and, like, entertainers, it's just your work is very personal.
it's very
You
personal.
know what I mean? So it's like someone sitting across, and granted, like, it's not saying like, oh, you're adverse to constructive criticism or anything like that, but it's like to balance the constructive criticism along with like trying to stay true to what you're trying to express.
Right.
In that.
I think the hardest part that I had is not having the criticism. So a lot of what happens, I think, in musical theater, at least, which is where my passion really was in terms of performing, was musicals. I really wanted that's what I was pursuing all the time.
Sure.
And although I had an agent who I really enjoyed and I know was working hard for me, and knew that I was working hard, I think the really difficult part that I didn't enjoy was if it didn't work out or I didn't get a part, or there wasn't a lot of criticism to figure out why, or what can I do better, or what's happening, or where are the gaps of improvement that need to happen. Every now and then I would get it, or every now and then I would get something that I was like, okay, well, that's very clear to me that this person doesn't have any criticism, and so that's okay, and it just wasn't it for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that criticism was actually more helpful to me than something that I couldn't work with, because it just was a difference of opinion. So the tone of somebody's voice might really work for one person and not work for the other. It's a funny thing about like certain parts in musicals where people will be like, for Wicked, they'll say like, oh, my favorite Elphaba or whatever. And it'll be across the board for so many people very different. And a lot of it just has to be about the sound of somebody's voice for one person does something to them that the sound of somebody else's voice doesn't. And so I get all of that, and all of my friends that are still doing it now are in the same boat of the frustration behind auditions, of thinking that you're doing really well and really doing your work on it and not getting it, but also not knowing why. What is, you don't get that feedback, and when you're doing it really often, that can get really frustrating.
I was gonna say, like, how do you work from that space if you're just like, all right, like, I did X, Y, and Z. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll see you. And then it's just, you don't get it. Like, what do you know?
I think for me, I got my circle of people at the time that I felt I really trusted their feedback, and I really trusted, I was taking voice lessons still all the time and coachings and always improving myself. But I was also always very real in wanting to have criticism and to say like, am I in the right boat here, or am I not in the right boat? Am I doing, and I knew I had a lot to offer, but I trusted a lot of people, and I also trusted myself. There were plenty of auditions that I would do that I was like, that sucked. That was terrible. Or like, and I would walk out, and some of those would be the ones I would get. Wow. And some of them I would be like, I'm not surprised, So I think it's a crapshoot. I think it's all about you knowing you're doing the right situation. I think if you listen to everybody else and you don't listen to yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice. But I think if you don't listen to other people too, it's all about playing the game. It's a game.
Yeah.
It's a game. And if you lay your head down at night knowing that you're doing the work, then there's really not much more that you can do. And I got to that point where like I was done doing that work in that way. And when I knew I was done in that way, like it there wasn't a whole lot of regret when I was expanding my life and vocabulary to other things.
Yeah. I saw a clip of Bill Hader, if you know Bill Hader. He was just like talking about like the writing process, and like he was like saying like, like let's just say like, well, he says like be wrong fast, you know what I mean? Just like, get the bad ideas out first, but just kind of like when presenting something to like other people, he'll like write something and give to someone to say like, like, what do you think about this? And like someone could say, oh, I don't like the relationship between like this man, this woman. And then like when they whenever they go into like how to fix that, they're usually wrong. But like that initial like I don't like the relationship between like this, like the man and the woman like is initially right. So when someone is like trying to tell you like how you should fix something, that's usually wrong. And like I'm just like talking like in the creative space. If you'd like know like where you're trying to go, exactly right, exactly.
You take the criticism of like let me re-explore.
You're right.
But then deciding their creativity is better than your creativity, you take that with a grain of salt.
Exactly. Right. So no, I definitely feel everything that like you just said about.
I think you have to have community. I think it's important. It's important for me to encourage, my friends or whatnot when I hear them or do something that to make sure that they know that I still really think they're really talented, and I'm not just saying that because I feel like I have to because we're friends, but it's because you do need to hear that. It's really important.
So when did you when was the opportunity for Broadway presented to you?
So I was never on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
I was never on Broadway. I did the national tour of Big River, and I did regional theater productions.
Okay.
And I did but I never actually made it to Broadway.
Okay.
I did a lot of regional stuff that auditioning for in the city, but I transitioned before I actually
made the jump. Yeah.
I've made peace with.
Sure, yeah.
I never necessarily in the transitioning place thought that I was gonna get this far away from it.
Okay.
But I think that life just presents itself to you in different ways, and I've been okay with that. But I'm also 45 years old, and there's never say never.
Was George White Scandal, was that one of like your first regional productions?
It was Big River was the first was my first big production.
Okay.
And then from there I did Cats, and and I did a couple of productions of Cats in a couple different places.
Okay.
Which was really fun and probably the most challenging of productions that I did. Just because it was a big role. I played Grisabella, so it was a really big role and iconic when it comes down to everyone's waiting for Memory to be sung at the end. But it was definitely the most rewarding, I would say, role from the standpoint that I felt, there was good pressure put on you to really be able to perform that number over and over and over again.
For sure. No, one more for you. I'm putting it back to John. So what was Big River like, just being in your first big production? Like how was it prepping for that? How was it just like, navigating for that? Like, John touched on like the butterflies, like people get before any big event like that. So like, what was that like for you?
It was awesome. I mean, I loved it. I enjoyed feeling like I had a family on tour. We were, going to all these different cities all the time, and that was really great. I think that, we were presented a challenge. I can't remember exactly where we were, but we were on stage, and I sang the very first line of the opening number, and they would give me the note for it, and then I would sing it a cappella, and the power had completely gone out in so there was no note. I saw our pianist pressing it down, and I was like and it was, if I started it in the wrong key or whatever, then I was going to throw off the entire thing. And that moment when I like dug into my body of like muscle memory, body memory, the whole thing, and did it. It was I remember that being a huge moment for me to trust in myself and know that like I, was doing the work. And it was a really beautiful moment. I remember Rick, who did all of our music was just really thankful for that. And also really made me feel good as a musician, as opposed to just a performer, but really the fact of like college came through like in that moment, all of that kind of stuff, like all of that kind of work made a lot of sense. I think like as a creative for myself, I didn't want to go to college. It was a requirement by my family.
Sure.
And I just wanted to get out there and do what I wanted to do. So that was a big moment of having everything sort of make sense.
Yeah.
But it was again another time of like, having to work really hard of you're in a different city all the time doing different things, and in cold weather and in warm weather, and and knowing your body, knowing your voice, knowing yourself. There is no excuses, and I never wanted to be that person that had an excuse. I mean, I don't call in sick to work. I don't not show up. I don't, that mentality of things is not my norm.
Yeah, fact.
So I think I learned a lot.
That's crazy, like having that happen to you on like your first production, like the power go out, like you gotta hold a note, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like
just you gotta trust yourself. It was a big trust yourself moment. I think. So
She played Judas.
Oh, for real? Oh,
that was
but even in high school, I mean, Judas is a man.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's just powerful voice.
Right. Yo, that's hilarious. But John, just like even like pivoting back to you, I heard you like had some like high profile like security detail jobs.
Yeah, I had a couple.
Yeah.
A couple in the DMV area. Flotus and POTUS details.
Okay, dope.
Justice details, things of that nature. Some celebrities that would come through. Individuals as far as like DC snipers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of things that we got involved with in the DMV area.
Sure.
As far as protection details. You know what I mean? Dealing with Secret Service, dealing with federal entities and things of that nature.
Yeah,
there were quite a few.
How did that compare to like the day-to-day that you would normally see, like, in, just in other aspects of your job? Like,
I mean, some of them I wasn't in control of.
Okay, right. Yeah, right.
Well, depending on the situation. I mean, if you're the lead, then there's a lot of responsibility. And there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of putting, the puzzle together and putting people in the right spots.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But if you're just one of the guys, you do as you're told.
Were you ever the lead?
I was, of course.
Oh, for real?
And a lot of things, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's just the fact that I've had people trust me in that situation. You know what I mean? As an assistant team leader for our tactical SWAT team, is your CO and your XO, they trust you as an individual to lead. And the young guys that are coming on, they trust you to lead with the growth and development of the young cats as well. So yeah, it's all about trust.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. And I just even want to touch on something like you said earlier, that you were retired at one point.
Yes, I retired.
And you came back into the force.
I came back with the blessing of her,
for sure,
and my daughter. There was a lot of stipulations that were
definitely
way, you know what I mean, and a lot of things or a lot of demands that I had.
For sure.
So you put on yourself.
Right, I did because I didn't want it to interfere with my relationship with her.
Absolutely.
I didn't want it to interfere with my relationship with my daughter.
Absolutely.
So there were a lot of things that when I came back into law enforcement that I was no longer willing to do prior to that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and just from like even like a safety standpoint, you know what I mean? It's just, keeping the family intact,
yes.
Like, that's super important. But what was the driving force for you internally to be like, like I want to get back out there?
Well, I got bored a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sitting around on the back lanai while she's grinding, down in Florida.
Right.
I'm drinking bourbon and smoking cigars. And sometimes we would go out, we would day drink and whatnot, and the shit got expensive and it got bored. I said, I'm burning money when I could be making it.
Right.
But the driving force of me getting back into law enforcement was, no knock on places like Home Depot and things of that nature. But that just wasn't my character. I wasn't fulfilled.
Yeah.
Punching the clock for somebody else. You know what I mean? And I got back into law enforcement because I didn't get back into it for a paycheck. I got back into it because I had a passion for it. You know what I mean? And that's one of the reasons why I got back into it. It just, I felt complete. You know what I mean? I didn't know what I wanted to do when I first retired from Arlington. I'm like, what am I going to do? And other opportunities presented themselves to me in New York, but they were taken away for COVID. So, you know, I sat around and I bitched and moaned to her, you know what I mean? And I finally talked her into letting me get back into it because it was a period in time where don't even talk about it. That happened. I mean, but the trust that she has with me as far as what I wanted to do with my career down in Southwest Florida was something that she gained from, you know, the camaraderie that we developed down. So,
I mean, I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, how did y'all two meet?
Oh my God. Man,
There's 2 stories.
Okay, I work.
There's one main story to the concept.
One main timeline, the second timeline went back.
One main story to the concept. I'm in this hotel in downtown DC, and I'm there with a buddy of mine from the FBI, and I'm there with my brother, and we went to a function in one of the suites that the feds were throwing. And I was there. I showed my face, showed my presence, but at the same time, I got tired of talking shop.
Yeah, bro.
So I left and went down to the bar, and down at the bar area, you know, with this my eyes bestowed to me, but this redhead, she's sitting at the bar by herself with a big ass plate of meat in front of her and a glass of wine.
I had a bottle.
Oh, a bottle of beer. Excuse me.
No, I had a bottle of wine.
Was it a whole bottle of wine?
Yeah.
With a glass. But I mean,
Right.
I'm just saying that what type of mentality is it? This woman is eating a plate of meat. You know what I mean? I'm like, she's wholesome as hell. You know, it's something that I want to try to get to learn.
Yeah. What makes it tick?
Right. But also at the same time, I wasn't even hunting that night, man.
Yeah,
I was not on a mission to meet a girl.
Sure.
To meet a young lady.
Sure.
You know, I went downstairs to get a drink.
Yeah.
You know? So I wasn't going to approach her. As a matter of fact, she started a conversation, a very brief, small conversation with my brother at the time.
Okay.
But at the same time, when the opportunity presented itself to me, you know, I inched over towards her and whatnot. And then at the same time, again, I'm like I said before, I'm not hunting.
Yeah.
But you know, she ended up walking out, and when she got up, you know, there was something there.
Yeah.
And that bar that I didn't see, she was sitting on that shit.
Legend.
So when she walked out, I'm like, whoa. I'm like, hold on, time out. I'm like, get a T.O., baby. Like, come here.
Yeah,
Back here.
right.
Yeah, so we exchanged numbers, and, you know, we had talked on the phone a lot, and we did a lot of text messaging and whatnot. So I finally, you know, I said, I want to come out to New York and get an opportunity to learn you. And we grew from there. But
Slowly.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, Shannon, what was like what's your take on the night? Like, so like you're eating your food, bottle of wine, you're cozy,
Yes.
you know, you're approached, you know what I mean? Like, what was the
I knew I was going to be at the bar for a long time.
Okay.
I came in just for the weekend. My sister was there on a conference and she was flying in. So I just thought, well, I'll, you know, meet her and we'll have a nice weekend in DC. And so I was sitting at the bar and her flight was delayed. So I was going to be there for a long time. So I ordered a large charcuterie platter,
Okay.
also known as a plate of meat.
Yeah.
And a bottle of wine, as it was more economically priced glasses. And so I noticed Jon the moment he walked into the bar, and I worked hard for approximately 2.5 hours to get his attention, and nothing. So I gave up. Well, the bar closed, and so I picked up my bag and was headed to wait in the lobby for my sister to arrive. And then the rest of the story. But I worked hard trying to get his attention, and he gave me nothing.
Yeah.
Gave me nothing.
Wow.
Nothing to work for. Nothing. So I don't think there was any
I
interest.
got the attention from her that I deserved to get. That's when she walked out of that motherfucker.
Whatever.
Yo, no, that's beautiful. So when okay, no, yeah. Sorry, yeah. I'm getting message from all over the place, but no. So Shannon, when you were kind of, I guess, like, finishing up your run in the I guess, yeah, just like, singing and like, like performing.
Right.
What was like that like last leg like for you? Like, did you ever try to make the jump to Broadway? Did you just like say like like I don't think it's at this point in my career?
No. So I was auditioning a lot and doing what I thought, really well in a lot of the shows. It just nothing had quite clicked, which I knew that had happened for a lot of people. But I had done basically 13 callbacks for the musical Wicked, and I was really to the point that I thought something was going to come out of it, and had worked really hard with a lot of different people, spent a lot of different time making it happen. And long story short, it didn't.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it was kind of a culmination of a lot of what we talked about. I really didn't get any constructive feedback of anything I could do with it to go anywhere, to make improvements, and I had just sort of at that point, I think, had it. I just needed a break. I had felt as though there wasn't a whole lot more that I could give. And I, so I decided to take a bit of a break, and I had this idea of a business at the time. And so although I was working a couple of other, really great and connected survival jobs, I knew that I was super happy working with kids, which was one of them. And so I just wanted to shift gears. I wanted to also be in a space of trying to make a little bit more money and be in the city in a different place of finances. And I also was feeling my own pressure of not like making my family proud, my parents proud, all of that kind of stuff. And although I do feel like I had a very successful musical theater career for what I had done,
For sure.
it was my own self that got in the way, I think, a lot of the time. And I've come to, the older I got, I've come to realize that more now. But yeah.
Was like the babysitting agency like the first thing like you landed on, like this is what I'm going to do? Were there other ideas prior? Like,
no, I mean, I had some ideas of things, but they still ended up having me like work more for other people and not really explore some of the things that I wanted to do. And having the babysitting agency, it was solely mine. So I think I had a lot of freedom with it to do a lot of different things. So it was the first venture that I had in starting a business. And so I went to an attorney who ended up being my accountant for a long time, and worked with him for a series of years, really. I mean, the idea and concept kind of started like 2003, 2004. And then in 2006, I officially opened the agency. But we were working in it for a couple of years unofficially. And then had an official open of 2006. So it's like 18 years-ish. Yeah.
Hey, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. That's dope.
Thanks.
And what was it like just pretty much just using a different part of your brain? Like, yes, like there's obviously like some, there's creative elements in like, entrepreneurship, but it's like, it's more business centered now. Like you got to go in it's for yourself.
Very challenging and extremely satisfying.
Absolutely.
And very rewarding and very difficult and all of the things. I mean, I think that like there's, a thought that I always had growing up, really having this creative mind, that I wasn't a smart person, because I think that I saw my sister as very intellectual and really smart, very book smart. Things came very easy to her. That was not the way I had it. I really had to break down things into stories. Yeah, and so it made me, because I learned differently, and because I think our schools weren't developed in teaching differently.
Fair, yeah.
It made you feel as though you weren't smart, as opposed to the fact that when I actually learned things in a way that worked for me, then I was able to excel into a place that made me feel incredibly smart. And so owning my own business, where I could apply these ideas that I had and figure out how to bring them to fruition, and then figure out the challenges around them and all of that kind of stuff, and not have a whole lot of resources outside of myself to figure those things out. it was very rewarding. It was very scary because a lot of, you don't know if you're doing things right. It's still very scary now when it comes down to certain things of finances and, business taxes and just all of this kind of stuff that is not my forte. It's not something I excel in. And I either am like trying to do it perfectly or feeling like I'm going to go to jail if I like, it's this huge extreme of like, when that's not what you're in. You're just in this place that you're constantly having to it doesn't come organically,
Right.
Easy to you. Yet I could sit down and, think of 12 ways the website could be different and more fresh and more exciting and, ideas that we could do or things that sitters could be doing and ways that they could excel or talking to clients about different things that they, can be doing with their kids when they're having struggles or issues or problems to bring them out of their shell and help with all of that kind of stuff. That stuff to me, it's not work. It's a lot of fun. But it was a whole new can of worms, and it was one that I didn't get as much support on, weirdly enough. I think telling your family that like, oh, I've moved to New York City and like I've moved here to do this, and like I think that they understood that dream, but then now all of a sudden being like, oh, and by the way, I'm going to open a company in childcare, and we're, they were just like, what, wait a second, then come home. Like, if you're not going to do this, come back. And, so it was, but I don't know. I knew that it was something that was necessary. I knew it was really needed. And I had this idea for kind of making it work. But it has been 20 years of, it's hard.
Absolutely.
It's been really, really hard.
What I mean, here we are 20 years later, and like,
but it's still working.
still
Yeah,
going,
still happening. Yeah.
It's a testament to everything.
Oh, it's called artist babysitting. So artist babysitting, and the idea behind it is that all of my sitters are artists. So why I really wanted this company to set itself apart from other companies is that not only did we want kids to be able to have the opportunity of exploration and creativity and imagination and have that be able to flow in a really organic way working with people, but I wanted artists to be able to have a better and more attainable and more possible job to support their artistry. So although working in restaurants is a incredibly wonderful beast of a job that you can have out there, that you can make fast money and all this kind of stuff, it's very difficult, when you've got an 8 a.m. audition that you've got to sing your best at, and you're at the restaurant closing until 4, so every job and every situation has its beasts as well in terms of trying to work through the negatives. But the positive part is that while you're working, these sitters are able to explore their creativity, practice on them, use, their audition books to do really exciting things. And also the kids are only benefiting from this process. So, there's a lot of kids who have been able to sort of like exercise that muscle, that they wouldn't be doing. I love it when families will say like, oh, this sounds so great. My kids seem to be interested in this, and I have not one part of my body that is creative at all, and to me, that's like awesome, because then there is no comparison. These people come in and they are totally something different, and these kids are getting something that they don't get from their parents. And it just 99.9% of the time flourishes into like a relationship that, is really positive and long lasting.
Yeah.
Having been open this long, I think that's the biggest and most beautiful benefit of seeing it, is how many of these kids have now grown up and are still communicating with sitters, having their sitters at their weddings and parts of their lives, and texting with them, or all of that kind of stuff. It's really, I mean, to me, what more could he ask for?
No, facts. And like, I think just even that aspect, like, you want to give people in the creative field that like are pursuing like creative careers. I mean, you don't see real money or sustainable money to like live until like you're super established, and that's years down the line. I think that's an incredible avenue, and I think a lot of people are grateful. Jon, I do want to touch on some of the discussions you hold as far as mental health in law enforcement. Just talking to you, I can already tell that you've been able to find a way to just find like a North Star in like such like a hectic career. So just speak on those discussions. Speak on just what how you navigate protecting your mental health as, someone in law enforcement.
That was the most challenging aspect, in my opinion, in law enforcement, was to manage the time and the stress. You get a lot of cats that manage the mental health and the stress with a glass of bourbon or a bottle of scotch and things of that nature, and they end up abusing that because that's the only thing they can cope with that's economical to them to deal with that type of stress. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of law enforcement officers leave and end up coming back because of the lack of mental health and lack of health benefits that's available to them.
Right.
And what we're not recognized for is the fact that we do need help as far as mental health is concerned. We see a lot of things that the average individual doesn't see.
Crazy, yeah.
We come across a situation that a lot of the average individuals don't see, and once you finish a call, the next one's coming. You don't have time to process the fact that you just pulled an infant out of a car crash who's been decapitated, or something's wrong with the parent, or you don't have time to process that dead body, because you got another call coming as soon as you mark back in service. So dealing with situations like that, you come home, you kick your shoes off, you don't watch the news because you know what the news is.
Right.
We're out there.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? You turn on some music, you turn the goddamn lights out, and you crack open the bottle and you talk to that bottle.
Damn.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You talk to that cigar, or you talk to the walls. And sometimes I've cried myself to sleep. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you got to remember, you got to wake up, and guess where you're at in the morning? You're either in roll call or you're back in your office, and you're doing the exact same thing again. You know what I mean? Do you bring it home to your spouse? Do you bring it home to your girlfriend? Are they going to be have that wherewithal or that patience to sit around and talk to you about stuff like that? A lot of men internalize things in law.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I had a bad habit of that. Of internalizing things as far as what I encountered and what I've seen. And I'm starting to learn with growth and development and maturity that I can talk to Shannon about some of the things that happen at work. You know what I mean? And the mental health aspect of it is swept underneath the rug because of the ego that men have.
Sure.
Along.
Sure.
And that's one of the things, as far as like one of the reasons why I equate the situation, and God bless, I take my hat off, and I'm really sympathetic to the situation that happened in LA County Sheriff's Office. Within the last, I'd say maybe 10 to 14 days, they buried 4 officers to suicide, and one of them was retired. No one to talk to. No one to share ideas and concepts with. And you get that imbalance in your body where, quote unquote, it makes you want to eat a bullet. And the reason why is because there's not a lot of people that understand.
Right. Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of it's the same with military aspect. Those guys, they go over, they see war, they come back. Who they talking to?
Yeah. Right. Unless you were over there.
Right. Who? And that's one of the reasons why a lot of cops are around a lot of cops.
Yeah.
Because we understand each other. We understand what we're going through and what each other's going through. And at the same time, we tend to lean on each other. But when we're not there, and we're fearful of having an interaction with either our spouse or somebody that we can have a close relationship with, we feel like we're going to taint it if we talk about it. But I think that with growth and development, and also the level of information that you bring home, if you engage your spouse where he or she can understand that, then it works out in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, no, everything you just said was, super poignant, and just, yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I can't even imagine, like, pulling an infant out of a car. Like, it's just like, most people don't even see that image in like a lifetime, let alone two, let alone just like, that's just one of your calls.
Babies and children, I mean, they're a mind fuck.
Man,
They're a mind fuck because they
can't
can't
even imagine. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
They're not in control of the vehicle that they're driving or riding in. They're not in control of the bullet that might hit them that's meant for somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So when you deal with children, I mean, that can be devastating, especially for law enforcement or first responders to overcome. Even paramedics and firefighters, when they see burnt carcasses and things of that nature, when a medic rolls up on the scene of an individual kid that got hit the crosswalk and their leg is over there, and it's devastating. It can be devastating to the mind.
I appreciate you for, touching on that. Like I think this is, super important. Just on a bit of a personal note, for those who don't know, you are the uncle to the owner of MastersInCreation Media, as well as the namesake of the podcast. I just want to get your perspective on what it was like, watching Mike evolve not only as an artist, but as a business owner and entrepreneur.
And you know what? It is a blessing to be here with MastersInCreation Nation. You know what I mean?
I like that.
Man,
I like that.
I'm going to tell you right now, man, I have been a fan of that dude since day one.
Facts, yeah.
Since day one. Since he came out of the womb, I've been a fan of that dude. And I've always wanted to be here and support you.
Absolutely.
With your mission. You know what I mean? Your mission to be successful and to also reach the community and do artistic things and things of that nature. But every single time I get an opportunity to praise you guys, especially that cat,
absolutely,
I'm gonna do it. We Shannon and I, when he was in Penn State University, we would travel up to Penn State University just to break bread with him and have a couple of drinks.
That's love, yeah,
and show support. You know what I'm saying? And I cannot say enough for the resiliency, the ambition, and the passion that cat has done for this.
100% agree.
I mean, and even you supporting him, being his right-hand man, you know what I mean? You're the Robin to the Batman.
Absolutely.
Scottie Pippen to the Michael Jordan.
You feel me? Yeah.
And I respect it.
I appreciate it, man.
I take my hat off to both you cats for doing what you're doing and staying in the grind, because you grind on this.
Yeah.
I mean, and, a lot of people don't know what type of work and the kind of work that you guys put into this shit outside of what you do to pay the bills. You know what I'm saying? So, you're going to reap the benefits. Both of you are going to reap the freaking benefits of this shit. So keep grinding.
No, Jon, again, it's been an honor, honestly, and a pleasure, getting to know you, getting to know Shannon. I think, it's just been, it's good to just get this energy in here, No, thank you so much. I just, want to give you guys the floor here. Jon, if you maybe have any discussions that you're holding, coming up, and Shannon, I also want you to plug your business one more time. But this is where you just kind of leave the people where they can find you if you want them to find you. You know what I mean? Follow on social media, whatever.
People can find me where they find me.
Yeah.
I'm not hard to find.
Right.
Hiding.
Yeah, facts.
So, I mean, you can reach out to me via email. You can give me a call on the cell phone. We talked about starting our own podcast. We're dealing with jurisdictions and law enforcement and mental health.
Oh, no, we need that.
Interracial relationships.
We need that.
Looked at that. I mean, we talked about things of that nature, you know what I'm saying? And it's just the fact that it's got to be timing for us.
Facts, yeah.
We'll get that information out eventually at one point in time. But, yeah, man, I'm an easy find.
No, facts, no. We need that Jon and Shannon, pod, though. Yeah. That got to drop.
We talking about it.
No, that would be dope. Shannon, again, please, plug your business. Where they could find you, on social, where they can find the business, on socials.
Sure. So it's Artist Babysitting, artistbabysitting.com. That's the website, and there's ways to inquire through the website. And all of our social media is at Artist Babysitting or Artist Babysitting on Facebook or whatever. So pretty easy also, but yeah, we're just in New York City. One city is all I can handle right now.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, still going strong and happy to be there.
Beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining. Such a dope discussion, man. Listen, MIC Podcast, episode 100 and some. We don't know, but there's gonna be another 100 and some. Listen, community content, you get it all here. Jon and Shannon Harrell in the building. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And we're out. Peace.